Guys, how are you? It was great seeing you yesterday, and I hope everyone's still happy and healthy. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to continue kind of laying the foundation for how all of these dictators came to power. Okay, so let's go over our agenda. We're going to review a little bit and then we're going to continue forward. All right, so first things first, let's go over our EQ. How did dictators acquire and expand power in Europe in the 1930s? Okay, so we're also going to be talking about the four different dictators. We have Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and then Tojo. And then the classwork that is expected is I'm looking for a paragraph. I'm looking for 7 to 8 sentences, and it's going to be 15 points. And the question that I'm posing to you is I want you to explain the chain of events that Hitler took in order to officially take over power in Germany. Okay, how did we go from a democratic Germany to him completely being the only one in charge? Now, the question that I also want you to answer is could this happen today in 2020? Why or why not? Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on today for the classwork. All right, and away we go. Okay, so first things first, remember, okay, with World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, okay, that was the ultimate punishment on Germany. That Treaty of Versailles hurt Germany in so many different ways, okay? We forced them to pay a very large amount of money of reparations to fix Europe after all of the different types of disastrous bombings and kind of all of the stuff that was laid to waste during World War I. Germany had to fix it all. Germany had to pay it back. Okay, but here's the question. Here's the statement: $50 billion worth of damage. Do you think Germany can afford that? No, Germany can't afford that. Okay, it was a very large amount of money. Because Germany couldn't afford that, Germany was in a lot of trouble. Germany also had to give back all the land they acquired during World War I. They had to scale back their military. The Treaty of Versailles hurt them in so many different ways. Politically, it hurt them. Economically, it hurt them. Socially, it hurt them. All right, the lower and middle class were in trouble. They lost all their money in the banks because of this high amount of money that Germany had to pay back. And when you're being forced to pay $50 billion, what they thought was a good idea was to start printing out all this money. And by them printing out all this money, it led to a large amount of inflation going on. What cost a little amount of money now was quadrupled. It was bad. Germany was in bad shape. And you start getting a lot of social unrest, and you start getting a lot of miserable people who are talking, and someone who is willing to kind of be charming and listen and make all these promises, it seemed good. Okay, it seemed really good. And we talked about this. We were in our own situation. We had an inactive president in America who was not willing to make steps to get us out of the Great Depression, Hoover. And then we have this charming man who has a plan for us and is telling us that he can help us. And, you know, he was a great speaker and he was confident. Sounds like the beginning stages of Hitler. Okay, but as you know, FDR did not do the things that Hitler did. But if we lined up the qualities of Hitler and FDR in the beginning, they both mark the same boxes. The people of Germany needed someone to believe in, and Hitler was charming, and Hitler was smart, and he was persuasive, and people got behind him. So we're going to discuss that a little bit, okay? Because all of these dictators used the fear, used all of the bad things that were kind of going on in their own countries to their advantage. They used these people and kind of all the things going on in order to get all this power. And then to maintain the power, they took away a lot of rights of these people. They controlled by fear. All right, so first things first, we're going to start with Hitler. Okay, Hitler came in during a time when $50 billion were kind of being held over the heads of the German people. And he started the Nazi Party. He became the chairman of that party, which was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Whew, that's a mouthful. Nazi Party. Okay, he was the chairman of it. He was the one in charge. And he started speaking all around Germany. And he was charming, and he was intelligent, and he was basically using the anger of the people and their suffering, and he was promising them a better life. He was promising them a better Germany. He was really, really kind of getting into like the worst part of German life, and people were willing to listen. People were excited about this guy. They were thinking maybe he can save us. Maybe he can get us out of this bad situation that we're in. Okay. And once he had them, that's when he started introducing his anti Semitism. Okay. His extreme hatred of Jews. Okay. But he already had the people by then. Okay. He wasn't going to start off with hating the Jews in the beginning. He had to slowly get them to like him and then start putting that other stuff in there. Okay. Now, once he had the people, he was able to acquire power pretty quickly. He was able to get out the leader of Germany pretty quickly, and he became the Chancellor of Germany. And once he became the Chancellor of Germany, he was able to get rid of democracy completely and turn it into a totalitarian rule where he's the only one in charge. There's no one voting over issues. It's what he says and what goes. And at the time, people were kind of like, all right, well, I guess this works for us. We just need one person who's making all the decisions for us. And he did gain a lot of popularity. You have to understand, though, while this was going on, he was giving these fiery, passionate speeches full of promising a better life, full of kind of promising not only a better life, but kind of what the outlook could look like. Better future, more money in your pocket, a better Germany, okay? He was also carefully having propaganda designed, posters that had these smiling Germans promising them a better life, posters of a beautiful Germany, and this is what Germany could look like. He also started recruiting kids. He designed something called the Hitler Youth, where these were children who wore military uniforms and they swore their allegiance to Hitler. So, I mean, he was getting people of all ages to back him. He had these children involved in Hitler Youth, and basically, by getting them involved early on, he was turning them into soldiers. So when it came time to join the army, he had kids who were fully in the belief of Hitler from an early age. Okay, he was persuading them, he was indoctrinating them or getting them to know his message early on. Okay? He knew what he was doing. This was a very intelligent man who knew the right things to say, who knew the right things to do. He also started expanding the German Empire. He began building up his military. He started scaring everyone around him. Okay, so again, this was a multi-staged approach. Get the people in by giving speeches and visiting them. Slowly expand your army on the down low. Start kind of creeping around the other areas. Okay, Germany was kind of all accepting of a better life while all these other things were kind of going on around them. They just were so desperate that they either they had tunnel vision and weren't willing to see the things going on, or they were just so desperate that they kind of let maybe the negative stuff get swept under the carpet. It's kind of hard to tell at this point because they're so desperate. Now, while that's going on, he's also starting to form an alliance with Italy. Who's involved in Italy? Mussolini, who is our next dictator. Okay, so he's making these alliances with other dictators. Again, Hitler is very intelligent and takes advantage of the people 100%. Now, if we look at kind of his relationship with Mussolini, it's a little telling at this point, okay? Because Mussolini also used extreme nationalism and racism and, the fact that his people were also kind of in an economic unrest and social unrest. Again, he used the fact that his people weren't in the greatest shape to acquire power also. Okay, so we're talking about really intelligent men who were kind of preying on the weak, and the weak happened to be their own countrymen and women. Okay, now, once Mussolini rose to power with his fascist party, he became king of Italy. Okay, so while Hitler became chancellor of Germany, Mussolini became the king of Italy, and he banned every single party except for his own. Okay, so that's how he became a dictator. Now, once he became the dictator, all democracy was completely crushed. Okay, all civil liberties. So any type of liberty that you're granted, like freedom of the press, done. Okay, any type of free speech that you thought you had, done. Okay, and if you decided to exercise your freedom of speech or the freedom of the press, it wasn't good for you. You were thrown in jail or you were executed. Okay, so that's how he maintained control. Now, he also decided to recruit children and get them really young to kind of buy in to the fascist party and Mussolini. He also started building his military up like Hitler did. He promised Italy that under his rule, the glory days of the Italian Empire would be restored. And let's face it, as an Italian, to hear about your history of Italy and how beautiful it was back then, that was something that people were really excited about because Italy was in a bad shape after World War I. And this man was willing to restore them back to the good days of the Italian Empire and how they were thriving and rich. That was exciting. Okay, now, as he's doing that, he too is expanding his borders and he's starting to go into Africa, and he set his sights on Ethiopia because Ethiopia had a ton of resources that Italy wanted their hands on. Now, Ethiopia, in return, they decided like, oh, this isn't really good. We're not very strong, and a big, powerful country like Italy could easily take us over. So they reached out to the League of Nations, and the League of Nations, what they decided to do was they decided to ban the weapons in Italy. How are they going to enforce that? It was a useless punishment on Italy, and it was not able to be enforced. And after that punishment got doled out, Italy was like, okay, sure, ban our weapons. Nothing happened. And in fact, what Italy decided to do is they were like, you know what? We don't want to be a part of the League of Nations. We're going to withdraw from it. And we're going to continue with our aggressive policies. And we're going to continue to invade all the areas around us. And we're going to continue to be really powerful. And what they ended up doing was they invaded Albania. Okay, so they were starting to prey on all the weak countries around them to make themselves into the big Italian empire that they used to be. Okay, because again, Mussolini promised the people of Italy that they were going to go back to the glory days of that large Italian empire, of being rich and powerful. That was exciting to the people. And again, I don't know if they had tunnel vision and just weren't willing to look around them. They were only interested in going back to the glory days, or did they just kind of say, well, those bad things around me aren't affecting me directly. I'll just let it go. It's hard to tell. Okay. Now, then we have Joseph Stalin. Again, Stalin rose to power while his country was very weak. Remember, at that time, Russia, right around World War I, remember, Russia withdrew from World War I because they were going through their own revolution. They couldn't handle going through a revolution and fighting in a war, so they decided to withdraw from the war. And after the revolution, they were a mess. Their economy wasn't good. Their politics were all over the place. It was prime picking for someone as charming and as determined as Stalin with his Communist Party. Okay, it was easy picking for someone like him. And what he decided to do was he demanded complete obedience from his people. He controlled every aspect of their lives. And if he didn't get the results he wanted, he used force, brutal force, to ensure that he got complete obedience from them. Okay, I mean, he executed every single rival, any person that might have been some type of competition, any person that might have opened their mouth to say something against Stalin, he had executed. Anyone that even maybe you were just a regular worker in a factory and you said one little thing against Stalin, you were forced to go to a labor camp. Okay? Anyone who spoke out against Stalin was either executed or forced away. Millions of people were given death sentences either by being worked really hard or being actually executed. He also decided to change how the economy was. The economy was capitalist at one point, and he reorganized the country and their economy, and he forced almost all of his former Soviets to now work on farms. That they had to work together to kind of, as a collective, make money. Okay, so there was no longer rich and poor. Everyone across the board was going to do the same amount of work and receive the same amount of money. That was tough. It's the 1930s. Your country's going backwards. We just went through a pretty big technological revolution. Think about it. The 1920s, all these awesome inventions were coming out, and Stalin's going backwards. He's putting people to work on farms instead of embracing industry. Okay, that's scary. And then we have Japan. Japan was going through their own depression. Their government wasn't able or willing to really help them out of the depression. And a lot of people were in big trouble because of it. People lost their money. You know, people lost their livelihood because of this kind of lack of any activity to help the country. And because of that, Tojo, the leader, ended up rising to power, and he promised the people that he was going to help them. And he promised all of these things that, you know, Japan is going to end up being great again. And what ended up happening was Tojo was a military leader. He turned Japan into a militaristic country. And he ended up expanding Japanese kind of the empire all over Asia. He invaded Manchuria and China. He invaded a lot of weak kind of countries around him. And again, the League of Nations stepped in and they said, you know, we're going to condemn you, but there's no one there to actually police it. There's no one there who can actually say, enough is enough, stop it. Okay, it didn't work. The League of Nations literally had no power, and it wasn't good. And so all these different dictators were able to acquire lands and power and strengthen their militaries and get the vote of the people to back them up. I mean, if anything can line up right now, it's all these different factors for all these men to come into power. Now, the name of these four different countries, you know, we have Tojo in Japan, we have Stalin in Russia or the USSR, we have Mussolini in Italy, and then we have Hitler in Germany. They all form an alliance together. and it became known as the Axis powers. Okay, so you're going to hear that term a lot, the Axis powers. That's with these big four: Germany, Italy, USSR or Russia, and then Japan. Okay, so again, I want to go back to your classwork. What I'm looking for a paragraph, 7 to 8 sentences, 15 points. I want you to open up a doc when you do this. I want you to just explain the events of Hitler. How did he come into power? What occurred for him to come into power? And could that happen today? Could that happen today? Could it happen in America today? Why or why not? Okay, so you're going to be doing 2 different things with this assignment, all right? Again, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. We're so close to the end, and I want you to keep that motivation up. And as always, if you have any questions, just email me. Bye, guys. Slow your roll. Stay in your lane. Have a good one.